Let's talk about something I see all the time. Homeowners pouring $30, $50, sometimes $100,000 into a kitchen remodel and then turning around to sell their home just a few years later only to hear a buyer say, "We'll need to redo the kitchen." And here's the thing, that can be brutal, but it's also avoidable. So if you're planning to remodel your kitchen or if you're mid-project right now, today's video, we're going to talk about some common mistakes that can hurt your resale value and kill your chance of getting top dollar. Now look, I'm not saying your kitchen remodel needs to be boring or builder grade. If you want a purple tile backsplash or gold grout because it makes you feel happy, then do it. But you also need to understand that that decision is for you, not necessarily the next buyer. And the second you put your home on the market, personal taste becomes a liability. So if you want to protect resale value, you've got to design with that in mind. Now here's the thing, I've been selling real estate for over 20 years. I've been in a lot of properties, had a lot of conversations with buyers when they're looking through properties. And what we're going to discuss today is what I hear buyers complaining about all the time when we're walking through the kitchens touring different properties. Now before we dive into this conversation, I want to ask you a question. What are you concerned with most about doing a kitchen remodel? Do me a favor and let me know in the comments. Now, the first complaint I hear a lot of buyers make in updated kitchen remodels is the whole crop cabinet. These are cabinets that don't go all the way up to the ceiling. They stop short, sometimes because the ceilings are really, really high and the homeowner just didn't really know what to do because they didn't get a designer involved. They just went out and talked to a cabinet maker or what have you. And now they have this open space, which is a dust collector. It gets grime up there. It also shrinks the perceived height of the room because now you have this cabinet that stops short, and in many cases it can also signal an older or lower end design approach because it just functionally doesn't work out. Now the thing is, it can be fixed, but if you're somebody that's going through the remodeling process now or considering doing a remodel, then that's something to keep in mind because buyers don't want that empty void up there above the cabinet. They want both storage and style, and sometimes you can add custom wood fillers or glass front uppers, something up there that takes up that space. Now maybe it's not something that you can access easily, but more importantly, it's going to look intentional, not outdated. And on top of that, it gives the cabinets a more custom feel. It doesn't look like you just went out and bought prefabricated cabinets and throw them in. It looks like you actually took the time to hire a designer, go through the process of working with someone that actually knew what they were doing. And that's going to put me into talking about the second thing when it comes to cabinets, and that's this whole cabinet overload, where it's all cabinets, there's no drawers, and it's just not functional in many ways. The last thing most people want in a kitchen is the traditional shelving with fixed shelves that don't move, that don't slide out, especially on the bottom, because it becomes very, very difficult to move things in and out and get behind things. And many times you have to take something out to get the thing behind it. And as you know, a lot of us have multiple appliances now. Back in the day, we just had a stove and a microwave and maybe something on the counter. Now we have crock pots, we have Instapots, we have toasters, we have all of these different items on top of my Ninja Creamy, which makes delicious ice cream, by the way. So I have to move all of these things around in order to get to some things. And if you're going through the remodeling process, that's something that can be avoided with pull-out shelves, in addition to taking advantage of the corners in a kitchen. In old school kitchen remodels, there was just a corner there, and you had drawers pulled out on either side. And now not only do they have lazy Susans that spin around, but many of them have drawers in the corners that can also be pulled out as well, so that you can maximize the storage for these odd places. But here's the thing, I'm going to tell you something you probably don't want to hear. You're not going to be able to get those custom cabinets by going to IKEA or by going to a low-end cabinet maker. You need somebody that can make custom cabinets, someone that can come in and measure the space and create cabinets specifically for that space. Because the last thing you want to do is spend money on what you feel are custom cabinets that actually aren't custom, that the buyer doesn't perceive as custom, and a buyer wants to rip out as soon as they move in because they don't feel like the functionality is. Now, before we go any further, I'd like to take a minute and ask a favor. If you find any value in my videos at all, do me a favor and hit that thumbs up. And if you want to stay upgraded on everything about how to sell your home for top dollar, especially in this market here, please consider subscribing to the channel. Now, the next thing I'm going to say is a given, but I'm going to say it anyway, and that's you have to do soft close drawers, soft close cabinets, because one of the first things buyers do when they walk into kitchens and just bathrooms, you know, when we're touring houses, is they open the drawer and they shut it and they see if it has a soft close. And if it doesn't, it's one of the very first things they complain about. Now, on top of that, you want both cabinets and drawers so that you can maximize space and utility. You know, if you have a lot of pots and pans and that sort of thing, you probably want want wider drawers, bigger drawers, so that they can fit in there, so that you don't have to stack everything and go behind things in order to get other things. And when you're doing pantries should have pull-out shelving in it. Yes, they can have shelves, but you rarely want the fixed shelving unless they're only counter depth cabinets. If you have deeper cabinets, you want to spend the extra money on the remodel so that you can get the pull-out drawers. Now, if you're already in a house that had cabinets and all you did was update them, maybe you just refaced them or painted them or what have you, there's still a way to customize these cabinets to appeal to the masses, but it's going to take some money, right? You're going to have to go look at aftermarket pull-out systems and some different things so that you can help maximize that space. But the key thing to note here is if you're someone doing a kitchen remodel, take your time. Live in the property for a little bit before you actually do the kitchen remodel. See what you actually need for space and think ahead, right? You don't want to just do a kitchen remodel to where you are today. You want to be thinking further down the road. Are you having multiple kids? Are you going to need space in a pantry? Are you going to need additional space for appliances and that sort of thing? Because honestly, the last thing you want to do is a bunch of things sitting on a countertop or having to move things around just to be able to access things that you use on a daily basis. When it comes to kitchens, functionality is number one. Now, the next thing I hear a lot of buyers complain about, and it's something more recently than it was a couple of years ago, and that's this personalized backsplash, where people go over the top to create this highly visible, but often too trendy and taste-specific backsplash. And the reason for that is because bold patterns and colors, they change quickly. Styles change over time. So if you're someone doing a kitchen remodel, keep it simple, keep it clean, keep it neutral, keep it where it will appeal to the masses. You don't want it to clash with the flooring. You don't want it to clash with the cabinets. And what happens is when buyers walk in and they see something they don't like, in their head, they often overestimate the cost to actually fix it, replace it, whatever it is. So the last thing you want as a homeowner who's considering selling your home in the future is a buyer walking in thinking, well, I love this, but I've got to replace this and that's going to cost me this. So I can't give them top dollar, or I need to knock that off in the price because I know that's going to end up costing me money. So as I mentioned earlier, just stick to neutral classic designs like a white sub-white tile. Something like that is timeless. It makes it really easy for a buyer to change the cabinet color or the flooring or something in the future and not have to worry about it clashing because you did some bold pattern on the backsplash. Now, the next mistake I see a lot of homeowners make is not having the proper flow in the kitchen. You really want to create this work triangle, work rectangle to some degree between the refrigerator, the stove, the sink, and also cabinet space, wherever you're going to be prepping meals, doing cutting, that sort of thing. It used to be a work triangle. Now I would say it's a rhombozoid. Rhombozoid? I don't know what that's called, but anyhow, kind of going in between those things because bad flow kills usability, and you don't really want to have long walking paths or blocked routes because something's in the way in order to get to something that you're using, right? When you're typically cooking, you're either going to the stove to wash your hands, to rinse something off, you're going to the refrigerator right there, you're going to prep. There should be a flow between those items. If you have a big island in the middle of your kitchen that separates the refrigerator from the sink, and you have to go around it every single time, it is likely going to frustrate you and become a bigger problem over time. So the best thing you can do is when thinking about designing that kitchen is thinking about how you're moving from one thing to the next and not creating these obstructions in the middle. Now with that, you want to keep pathways between the fridge, the stove, and the sink unobstructed. You want to avoid putting large islands in that pathway as well. Again, you don't want to have to walk around that every single time you need to grab something to get back to whatever it is you were trying to do. And you really want to maintain somewhere between 4 to 9 feet between these triangular points to create the optimal flow. Now, the next complaint I hear a lot of is not proper lighting, right? It's either too bright, too dark, not having enough light in a kitchen is a problem. Having too much light or the wrong light also creates a problem. You don't want it to make it look like a hospital. You want to have a warm light in the kitchen. And if you're redoing the kitchen, you also want to put under cabinet lights as well. It adds a nice touch. I'm one of those people, when I'm in the kitchen in the morning, I don't want the bright lights on, but I do want some light in the kitchen, and the under cabinet lights give me exactly what I'm looking for. But the thing with lighting is bad lighting actually creates bad impressions in many ways. Now, you've probably been told that more lighting is better, bright lighting is what you want when you walk into a room, and that is true. You do want light, but you want the right light. So make sure you just don't go too harsh on the overhead light without some balance in there. In addition to that, you want an ability to dim lights. Like almost every single light switch in my house has the functionality to be able to dim it. Now, that doesn't mean we do it every time. In fact, we rarely dim dim the lights in these rooms, but we have that functionality so that we can create different lighting environments depending on the mood that you're in or what you're trying to create. Remember, great lighting sells a mood, and a kitchen that feels good often sells faster and for more money. Now, the final thing I want to talk about, and I see a lot of problems with over time, is not having enough electrical outlets. If you're redoing your kitchen, you're not just redoing the electrical outlets that are there and replacing, with GFIs and just replacing those outlets. You should be adding additional outlets, and on top of that, you should be adding things like USB-C, USB, so that you have multiple options, because almost everything today requires a plug of some sort. And the last thing you want after redoing your entire kitchen is realizing you don't have a plug where you're actually going to use the stuff that you bought. Now, that doesn't mean you need to go out and put a plug every 3 feet, but you do need to have plugs in multiple locations across the kitchen. Now, it used to be mandatory that you had a plug whenever you did an island in the kitchen. I think now they've changed that, because what they figured out was people were plugging things in and then draping it across to another counter, and people would walk across it and pull that off the counter, which seems absolutely asinine to me, but now it is no longer a requirement to have that in an island, at least here in California. But with that said, if you're somebody that's going to have pull-out drawers and you're thinking that maybe you're going to have your Instapot or something in a drawer that's going to be pulled out, you might want the ability to also have electrical outlets underneath that cabinet where things can plug in, and you can actually use that appliance without having to pull it out, put it on the counter every single time you use it. Now, with that, if you're one of these people that I don't want all of these outlets on the wall where everywhere you look there's an outlet, well, you can actually put them underneath the cabinet. There are ways to put them where they're hidden so that you're not staring at them every time. And in fact, that's how I would recommend adding some additional outlets, not only on the wall, but also under the counter, so that they are easily accessible, but not really visible from the eye. Now, here's the thing. I'm not telling you not to enjoy your home. I'm just telling you what I hear a lot of buyers complain about when they're walking through kitchens that have been remodeled. Now, if you have an older home with an older kitchen and your kitchen's not remodeled at all, I'm not telling you to go out and do that. In fact, I don't think you should do that, because rarely are you going to get a dollar for dollar return on what it costs you to actually do that remodel in that kitchen. Many buyers want to make the kitchen their own anyhow. So if you're just going in and planning on redoing a kitchen just to sell your home, and you're only doing the bare minimum, I almost tell you to wait. Save your money, just sell the property as is, and let the buyer do their own thing with it when it comes to that kitchen. But if you're planning on doing a remodel of your kitchen, go the extra step. Take some time, talk to a couple of different people, see homes in your neighborhood that have the same floor plan, and see what they've done to their kitchen to give you additional ideas. I can't tell you how many times I'm selling a home and people walk in and they've redone their kitchen and they go, I wish we would have done that when we redid our kitchen, or wish we would have done that. Oh, that's a good idea. And here's the thing. All of those things can be avoided by just taking the extra time, the extra steps to walk through properties and see what other people have done so that you can do it yourself when you decide to remodel. But here's my rule of thumb when it comes to upgrading a house. If you're thinking about resale focus down the road, you need to stay neutral, stay functional, stay timeless on the design. But if you're somebody that just plans on living in your house and you want to enjoy it, then, put your own personal touch on it, then just do whatever makes you happy and don't worry about what I said in the video. Now, here's the thing. If you are considering upgrading your home, whether it's to sell it or to stay in it, my recommendation is not to go cheap when upgrading your home. It will end up backfiring on you. In fact, I did an entire video where I talk about this in detail and the impact it will likely have in this video here. So make sure if you're considering upgrading your home, check this video out.